Russia's not panicking over the what's happening with the drone strikes, and they're not panicking over the aid being brought in. People say, why aren't you blowing up that airfield? Because Russia's winning the war, you morons. Russia's winning the war on the battlefield. The final battles of the liberation of Donetsk are taking place right now. We're looking at, I think it's Slavyansk is being threatened, and Kramatorsk is going to be fall. There's another city that the Russians have 60% control of. The Ukrainians can't hold land. They can't hold the cities. They are losing. They are being defeated. They're fighting hard. There's no doubt about that. Their drones are awful. Just ask the troops at the front line. I just came from there. Their damn drones are everywhere, the Ukrainians. They're everywhere. The Russians are not panicking. They're saying, yep, problem, we're working on a solution. They're not panicking. But who's panicking? Zelensky. Because he knows that the real war, where it counts, boots on the ground battles, is being won by Russia and won by Russia decisively. So he's playing these propaganda games. Right now, he's trying to provoke a conflict with Belarus in order to find a reason for Europe to get involved in this war. Europe will not get involved in the Donbass. They will not. And Europe's not going to get involved in Odessa.
So you're saying that, and I think about this all the time, and I think you're right. Lavrov and, Maria and Mr. Putin and Mr. Medinsky and all of these people who you and I know are, they're wise, they're sage, they're experienced. They don't knee-jerk react, and they know that someone's trying to goat them. And if they allow themselves to be goated, even though they're winning the war, in other words, they're at the 5-yard line or the 10-yard line or whatever the hell it would be, and all of a sudden they try a Hail Mary and that Hail Mary doesn't work and the other team takes the ball back 99 yards for a touchdown, suddenly it's like, uh-oh, we're in a bad place. That I know it's a stupid kind of football comparison that I'm making, but that's kind of where it is, isn't it?
Russia has the lead. They have the ball. They're deep in Ukrainian territory, and they're going for the game sealing drive. They've already won the game if they just kneel down, but they're going in to make sure that there is no winning this game.
Kill the clock.
Why would you do something stupid? You got Larry Zonka, I'm giving away my age, in the backfield. Jim Kick. And just
Mercury Morris.
Go up the middle. Hand it off. Go up the middle. You're going to get 3.2 yards every single time, and you're going to win this game. Nope. Don't give it to Bob Greasy to pull back. Paul Warfield's wonderful. Yeah. You throw the ball, it gets picked off. None of that. You don't need to do that. 72 Dolphins, undefeated season, baby. But
well, look, actually, it's a great football analogy because only you and I can talk about this, and most people would laugh. But the Dolphins won more games and won more Super Bowls under a boring attack or offense, and this could apply to many sports, by the way, than they did with my friend Dan Marino. Who had who's a good guy, and he and I played a lot of golf and did a lot of things together. But he was kind of a hot dog. He loved to throw the ball. He threw the ball 80 times a game, and they didn't win a Super Bowl. With Bob Greasy, he threw the ball 11 times a game, and they won Super Bowls. What does that tell you?
And it told you that they had the fundamentals down. They had a great running game, and and all that. This is where
that's what Russia's doing in the Donbass right now.
100. Russia has the best coach possible. They have the best coach. Vladimir Putin is the Don Shula of the early 1970s. He's not going to do anything stupid. Again, let's just think this through, because I've had this conversation with my wife. I've had it with my friends in Moscow here in the United States. Mm-hmm. Look, we're all human. I'm guilty of the same thing. Hell, I gave a presentation at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum called "Shoot the Dog," calling Europe a rabid dog and saying that Russia needs to shoot the dog. So I'm not wise. I am a Marine. I want to close with and destroy the enemy through firepower maneuver. And where's the sound of gunfire? I want to run to the gunfire and suppress it.
Yes.
This is why I was a Marine and not a national leader. Vladimir Putin is smart enough to ask the question, and then what? Because that's the most important question there. For whatever anybody wants to do, all the Z bloggers out there, all the tough political scientists out there, all the former Marines who want to kick ass out there, the question that must be answered is, and then what? Okay, so you do this. You take out that airfield. And then what? And then what will be a situation far more complicated, far more dangerous for Russia than the situation that exists today. Right now, Russia is not in danger. Don't believe any of the crap that's being put. I just came. Again, I was in Zaporizhia. I was chased by drones. I mean, it's bad. There's no doubt about it. It's bad. The people there aren't panicked. The people there are living their lives. The people there say, this is what we must do before victory comes, and victory must be certain. In Crimea, things are tough. But the Ukrainians take, the Russians, we're going to shut down.
But let's you and I be reasonable. We're Americans, okay? Let me do a comparison for you. There are more people killed in mass shootings in the United States than die in any of these drone attacks, with a few exceptions in Russia on any given week. By far.
And there's more. I would also put it this way, too. There's more municipal city fire damage done daily than Ukrainian drone damage to Russia. So in the United States, throughout the United States, we have fires breaking out in industrial facilities and all that. More damage is done through in normal day-to-day fires in major than what the Ukrainian drones are doing to Russia. So are people saying, oh my God, the American economy is about to collapse because there were 15 industrial fires throughout the United States this day? No, it isn't, because that's just the Ukrainian drone attacks are pure propaganda. Look at Voronezh. They hit this facility in Voronezh. It's a sensitive facility, produces sensitive electronics, but they hit the administrative building. So they burned out the offices of the paper pushers. They didn't stop any damn production. Look at Vodkinsk. They hit machine building 19 in Vodkinsk. It produces critical parts. But if you think that machine building 19 is the only building that does this work, unique to it, and you don't know Vodkinsk. You don't know anything about Russian defense industry. Vodkinsk is still producing missiles. There might have been a slight hiccup, but that's it. The Ukrainians are carrying out a masterfully executed British-run propaganda exercise where they flood the zone with drones. Look, we can build air defense. The Russians have very good air defense. People go, where's the Russian air defense? Well, they shot down 490 plus large drones. Okay, 490. That means that they expended a lot of missiles, a lot of ammunition. But what happens if you flood the zone? What happens if you have the U.S. intelligence coming in, British intelligence saying, if you shoot this seam right here, what you're doing is you're getting overlapping fields, and they only have 400 interceptor missiles available. So flood the zone with 500 drones. They're going to shoot down 400, 100 are going to get through, and then the mobile teams are going to shoot down some, but you're going to get a handful of them going through their targets.
And you'll get headlines. And the media will be there like your lapdog covering it. And I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about, and you know this, and it really frustrates me as a journalist that stuff like this happen. Just a few days, speaking of Belarus, not long ago, we were all over this story where a bus carrying a boys' soccer team, Scott, it could be my kids or your kids, a soccer team going from Belarus to Russia to play in a tournament, gets bombed, 28 kids on there, 64 people in total, one lady gets killed, 7 people are sent to the hospital. You bomb a freaking school bus with children on board? And there's no sight or glimpse of this article anywhere in the Western press, of this story, in the Western press. But then 2 days later, the story that you just explained to our audience, some drones get through and they make a lot of smoke and a lot of headlines. And yes, the price of gas went up for 3 days here in Russia. And my golf buddies, who you would have met if you would have gone to play golf with me, were all pissed off about it. So yeah, it had a little bit of an effect. But think of the difference in that, though. They don't cover a story where a bus is killed with kids on it, but they blow up every headline. New York Times, CNN, BBC, showing the smoke billowing off of Moscow. That's just unfair and dishonest. And that's all they're getting out of that story. They want a headline. It has nothing to do with winning a war. It's about getting a headline.
The problem with asking the questions, though, is then you get answers that are very uncomfortable. Let me give your American audience some answers here, people. Eric Schmidt, one of the founders of Google, has funded a company that produces a drone called the Hornet for the Ukrainians. Now, the Hornet uses AI and the Hornet uses Starlink. That's Elon Musk's company, an American company that to provide the satellite connectivity to guide this thing in. Now, they use these drones everywhere. I will bet you a dime to a dollar that a Hornet hit that bus. I will also guarantee you that Hornet came after me. I can promise you that because I saw it get shot down. And they're out there terrorizing Zaporizhia right now. The whole, Melitopol to Crimea road is being attacked, called the highway of death. There are some things, but it's bad. But here's the thing about the Hornet. The Hornet is programmed through AI to go out and loiter, and its sensors scan for specific vehicle types, and AI says or not. So on the surface of it, you're going, okay. But then what happens is when they battery life, because drones, they don't have gasoline fuel, battery life falls down, the AI clicks into automatic mode and it hits anything that moves. And so the vast majority of the targets being hit are civilian targets because the vast majority of the targets, the vehicles on the road are civilian vehicles. So it's not hitting what it wants to hit. So then it clicks over to automatic mode and attacks civilian vehicles because why the hell not? The goal is to terrorize the civilian population. This is murder. This is murder. If this crime was committed in the United States, Eric Schmidt would go to jail for life and he'd be liable to the death penalty. He's a murdering sack of cow dung. And Elon Musk is the same thing. I'm just going to say it to his face. Elon, you're a murderer of children. The 21 kids who died in Starbelsk died because your Starlink enabled the Ukrainians to fire 16 drones and murder those 21 innocent children. And they're murdering the boy in the bus. They're murdering others every day. This is a crime being committed by American companies using American taxpayer dollars, and facilitated by our government policies. We are the criminals here. Without us, half these crimes wouldn't take place.
Here's my concern. Given what you just explained to us, and you explained it very well, and I was in Starbelsk, as you know, and traveling to there, I can say I was lucky enough as a journalist that the Russian military escorted me there, and they had two, I don't know what the hell they're called, Scott, but they were two vans, SUVs, and they had this equipment on top, and they detected any kind of drone, and they were literally, it was kind of scary almost. They were driving almost 10 feet ahead of our bus. So if they would have hit the brakes, our bus would have crashed into them, but they have to be and remain really close. You get one to the next to you and one in front of you. Yep. You might be able to explain to our audience what that was, but go ahead.
They're jamming the city, and you're lucky to have that. And a lot of their military convoys do have that, but the vast majority of the vehicles don't do that. There is I think I could say this. There is an app that's used throughout that people can, that gives you a warning because they're detecting drones, and then they can send a signal out to cars, to civilians, who will then get the alert. There's a drone in your area, because the drone attack that we had, the civilian vehicles were driving right off the road. The people were running out of their vehicles and taking shelter. The military, scanning around looking for the targets. The military, I'm sure, had in the front of the vehicle, they had the same jammer system, but the civilians don't have that. So civilians are getting their alerts, separately. But here's my question that I wanted to ask you. Let's suppose, and boy, I hope this happens for the sake of both sides, because I don't think the Ukrainian people are getting anything out of this war. What's left in Donetsk, 10, 15%? Let's suppose that the Russians get that 10 or 15% in the next month or two or whenever. Whatever's left in Zaporizhia, what is it, 10, 15% also, or something like that, maybe 20%. They finished that as well. So now they got Luhansk, and they got Zaporizhia, and they got Donetsk, and they basically got the 4 oblasts, and they finally, obviously they already have Crimea. How does that change what we're seeing now? Because in essence, that would mean that the Ukrainian military on the ground would have been defeated, but this mamby-pamby crap with these drones could still continue for how long? And is that what the theater would look like for the next year, two, whatever?
Scott?
They're first of all, the mass number of drones aren't going to be fired by stay behind forces or things like that. I'll give you an example. When I went to Starbelsk, there was 2 drones hit within a block and a half of where we were. First, the Russians said, "Don't worry about it. That's outgoing." I'm like, I don't know, been around a little bit. Didn't sound like outgoing to me, but I'll believe you. And then they came and said, "No, we got to get the hell out of Dodge." The Ukrainians have this this derogatory term they use for the Russians that stay that refuse to be evacuated. They stay in the villages. They call them the zhdun, the waiters. They're mainly older people, but they're waiting for the Russians to liberate them. But the Ukrainians have their own zhdun, people who stayed behind, got Russian citizenship because the Russians bent over backwards to give citizenship to people who've gone. And then they wait, and the Ukrainians give them drones. And the thinking was that the zhdun, because my trip to the Donbass was kept secret. We didn't broadcast it at all to anybody. And yet there was a feeling that they knew I was there because people saw that I was there, and they phoned in. And these drones weren't coming in from abroad. These are drones that are being launched locally. And this is a problem. In Lugansk right now, a lot of gas stations, a lot of things are being struck. That can only be done with insider knowledge because the Russians are doing.
So it would diminish expansively.
The scope and scale will drop tremendously. First of all, the Ukrainians right now, when they recruit, they're having a hard time recruiting infantry for obvious reasons because they're all dying. Plus, it takes a long time to train good infantry. 6-month basic training before you can send them in front. Now they're getting 2 weeks of whatever, knock on the head, 2 weeks, and then you're sent to the front to die. Basically, just to buy time. Your job is to buy time while they try to come up with something. But they are recruiting extensively drone operators, 80,000 of them in the last year. And these are the guys that are out there launching these drones, and they have a whole bunch of drones to launch. But the Russians have become very good at doing what we call pattern of life activity, meaning, there are certain things that you have to do to launch a drone. It just doesn't happen by magic. There are preparations that have to be done. So you're looking for patterns of life, and the Russians have their own drones overhead. And when they find a pattern of life, when the Ukrainians make a mistake, they kill them. And the deadliest job for the Ukrainians right now is a drone operator. They're being slaughtered. And they will continue to flood the zone with these guys while they can hold this last urban belt of Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, and the one city that's about to fall, whose name I can't remember. But when this breaks, and the Russians push through and take all of Donetsk, the Ukrainian army is going to break as well. And these drone operators will stop operating drones because they'll all be dead. Rubicon, which is the Rubicon Center, part of the Russian Ministry of Defense. These Rubicon units are the best drone hunters in the world. And if Rubicon gets in your sector and you're operating a drone, you're going to die. It's about 100% certainty that you're going to die. And this is what's happening. So as Russia wins this war, you're going to see a huge diminishment in tactical drones. And once that happens, now the Russian mechanized units now have more freedom to operate, and they'll do deeper penetrations, and the war will change. Drones. Yeah,
they'll always be terrorist attacks. I imagine we can't stop that. Attacks
are going to be there. There will be there, but again, these things. Look, a lot of people need to reread Russian history and see what the Russians did from 1948 to 1954, 55. The defeat of the Banderist and Melnik. The organization Ukrainian Nationalism, huge fights being fought in Ukraine, huge fight, the Nazis, and the Russians defeated them, hunted them down in the villages, and eradicated them totally. They were all gone. Hundreds of thousands were killed, hundreds of thousands fled, hundreds of thousands were sent to the Gulag. But then Nikita Khrushchev decided to, blame Stalin for everything, and he called the Banderas political prisoners. So instead of rotting in the Gulag, he freed them in 1956, 57, and they came back and re-insinuated themselves into Ukrainian society. The Russians know what needs to be done, and the Russians will do this. They've done it, for instance, in Zaporizhia, there was a huge zhdun problem. and the Russian FSB went in there, and there isn't a huge Zdun problem right now. You can put two and two together, but the point is, if you're somebody out there supporting the Ukrainians, you will be found out and you will be brought to justice, and that justice will probably be life terminating.
Let's thank God that Putin doesn't drink the way Khrushchev did. And we'll leave that alone, or we'll get in trouble for Russian historians. Final question. You are very connected, as much as anybody I know, with a lot of the people who know really what's going on the front line. Stas is really good with this kind of stuff too. What is the outlook right now? What is the latest intel? Tell us about what is actually happening on the front lines. The West is telling us that Ukraine is winning the war.